slightly different scene, as you can see, because today what I want to talk about has to do with the wind, and I figure why not go to like one of the windiest places on a very windy day to have this talk. So let's do it. Okay, so what we're doing today is another analogy of God and something else, which, if you couldn't guess, is going to be the wind. And it's definitely one of my favorite analogies, because one of the main things that people use to argue about God's existence, or that makes them feel questionable about it, is the fact that they've never seen him. Okay, and so that's why we're going to do this analogy with God and the wind, because the wind is another substance that you have never seen, but is also powerful and is in our everyday life. So, as you can see, because you can definitely hear it. So, that's actually the first thing that we're going to talk about, is the fact that you cannot see the wind, but you can hear it, right? Throughout this whole video, which is why I love this, all you're going to be hearing is the wind in the background. And that's an amazing thing. And that's also how it is with God, right? You can't see him, but you can hear him. You can hear him when he talks to you, when you're asking for advice and he gives you wisdom, right? You can hear him when you have those feelings where you're like, something told me not to do this, or something told me that I should go here, or whatever. That's all God that you're hearing. And that's one of the things where it's like, just like you cannot see the wind, but you can hear it, it is the same with God. And the second thing is, you can feel it, right? You can feel the wind just as well as you can feel God's presence if you make the time to. You can feel God's presence. You can feel him in your heart. A lot of times we have this empty feeling in our heart that we want fulfilled, and we don't know what it is. We just know that we need something, and that is God inside of us that we need. That's that feeling that we get fulfilled when we have God, right? And a lot of people try to find that in other places, but that comes from God. So just like you can feel the wind, you can feel God. And the third thing is, though you cannot see the wind, you can see the effects of it, right? Like right now, you can't see anything, but you can see my hair blowing, right? You can see my hair going crazy back there. And let me show you something. You can't see it, but something is causing this amazing thing to fly, do designs, and all of that stuff, right? Another example is this wobbling tape right here, right? A lot of times people argue, oh, well, since you can't see the wind, except you know about God, then the tape must just be doing this by itself, But luckily we know that inanimate objects are incapable of doing things like this, right? They can't just move when they want to. We know it's the wind. And a lot of times there are things that happen where we just know it is God, right? Like, there is no way they could have done that without God. There is no way she could have forgiven. There is no way that he could have healed without God. And things like that. And there's so many times where you can see God in people and how they change and how they grow and how situations change. You can see the power of God even when you cannot see him directly. Okay, so those are two very good examples of when you can see the effects of the wind, even when you can't see the wind itself. And a lot of times, the main way to notice that is the wind doing the work is when the things that are happening are things that go against that item's capabilities, right? We all know inanimate objects like that tape, like my hair, like anything else can't just move on its own. Like you could try to put something out and take away the wind, and you could try to get it to move by itself, not touching it. It's not going to happen. And you could see that a lot of times in our lives. Things that we would have never been capable of doing, things that we had no control of, that ended up happening. And it's in those moments that you know there's something greater that is in control of all of this, because I didn't do that. It doesn't matter what situation you put me in, I cannot do something like that, right? Everything from the creation, from all the trees and the grass and the water and the rocks, all of are things that we can never create by ourselves, right? When you are still able to wake up each and every day, you didn't wake yourself up, you didn't keep your heart beeping, right? Things like that happen every single day. No, we cannot see God, just like we cannot see the wind, but we can see the effects of him. We can see his power every day, right? And in connection to that, the last similarity between the wind and God is how powerful it is. Like winds, oh my goodness. If winds can go fast enough and be powerful enough to take down houses and trees and destroy so many things, right? And they're also powerful enough to bring up kites and just things like that, right? And you see this power in things like that, right? When that one day when we had like 60 miles an hour wind, everybody's trash cans were flying away, right? So, and things like that, you can see it in like parachutes, the way parachutes use the wind to work. You can see it in kites, you can see it in windmills. Windmills use the wind to convert it into energy. So all of that included, and so much more, right? You can see the power of the wind even though you cannot see the wind. And the wind becomes so useful for us and does so many things for us even though we cannot see it. In fact, the matter is, if it did not exist anymore, we would not be able to do all those things that we're able to do, right? We wouldn't. And the same is true for our God. You cannot see him, but you can see his power. You can see all of the things that are able to happen because of him, right? And every day we use this power in order to be able to do certain things. We would not be able to breathe, we would not be able to walk, we would not be able to, basic functions would be taken away from us if we did not have God. Our very existence would not be a thing, right? Because he is our creator. And from the basic stuff to the bigger things, right? Like healing and joy, peace. All of those things come from God, right? Miracles, all of those things, breakthroughs, like those moments where you did absolutely nothing to get here. This could not have happened on your own will. In fact, there was no way. You were wondering how it would happen, and it did. Things like that all show the power of God, right? In just our everyday lives. So there's so many examples and ways that God relates to the wind, and that you can use the wind to connect to God. And I feel like, as I'm on my second analogy, that God does this with nature. That is why he created nature in a certain way, almost to be used as a reminder as well, aside from its other functions that it does for us, but to also use it as a reminder. Like, yep, I'm going to create wind, something that you cannot see, but it's so powerful, one, to do all the other functions, but also to remind you that just because you can't see me doesn't mean I'm not real, right? So, yeah, what are some other examples that you could think of, or some other ways that the wind connects to God? Or some other ways that the wind reminds you of God? Let me know. And I'm out. What would be really raw if I could have some like ending where the wind like blows me away or something, and I don't know. That just would have been a good illustration, I feel like. But we don't have that. So we sticking with my basic endings.